Hey, you. Yeah, you. Recommend me other videos in comments cause I'm out of topics. Also, if this video gets like, I don't know, 100 or 200 likes, I'll do whatever the best comment recommends. And also, subscribe if you want this type of content. Because a lot of you probably don't subscribe, and those videos are very hard to make, okay? So, what do we got over here? How do I put this? Not to sound mean, but these two guys both seem like a byproduct of 2010's Tumblr and analog horror. They give me that FNAF vibe, which I don't really like personally. But hey, that's kind of what makes me want to put them both against each other. They're both have this weird gimmick of hanging out with lower life forms, if you could call them life forms even, for entertainment, even though objectively speaking, they don't really get anything out of it. Actually, now that I think about it, you know who is very similar in this like DeviantArt YouTube Kids horror kind of way? Black Hat is in general very similar in many ways to both of those shows.
And you are?
Alastor! Pleasure to be meeting you, sir. Quite a pleasure.
On the lower end of things for Alastor, he should be able to destroy buildings, or towns, or even cities, based on some calculations that are out there. However, a better and more concrete feat comes from Adam, who is able to split Hazbin Hotel in one episode. And surprisingly, this isn't a building level feat, I know, it's crazy. Because somehow, the building is big enough that alongside the hill it's on top of, somehow, cutting all of this in half adds up to 300 megatons of TNT, or 6 times the Tsar Bomba, the strongest nuke ever detonated. So one attack from Adam is multiple times nuke level, or in other words, enough to cut mountains in half. And Alastor isn't as strong as Adam, don't get me wrong, but it's not like he's so far behind that he's getting completely destroyed. We see them fight, and I'm not gonna stay here and pretend that Alastor is so much weaker that one attack would just instantly kill him or something. We clearly see that at least they can fight to some extent. And to make this more consistent, Stolas, who's stated to be on the same level as Alastor, is also able to split clouds in this specific scene, which is actually very impressive and requires even more amount of energy than Adam splitting the Hazbin Hotel. But probably the most generous you could be to Alastor, and if you're really stretching it, to say that he and Stolas are stated to be somewhat relative, as I already mentioned, and Stolas actually has these weird celestial abilities. You could interpret them as him being able to move planets and even destroy stars. In which case, Alastor, being a solar system buster, is a very obvious possibility. This would also kind of be consistent with those ancient angels initially creating stars and planets in the physical universe, or at least as it's implied to be the case. Alastor probably isn't as strong as them, but fighting Adam is a pretty good feat to put him somewhere at least in the conversation, especially if you take the Stolas moving planets and destroying stars thing at face value.
Alastor! Pleasure to be meeting you. Quite a pleasure. I'm about to end your life.
Welcome to the Amazing Digital Circus! My name is Caine.
For Caine, it's pretty straightforward. If we take the digital world as real, instead of just saying it's a game and therefore weaker than humans, then we clearly see that there's multiple worlds in the simulation, each of them being at the least the size of small countries. just given the amount of land we see being traversed in like episode 2, for example, making Caine able to create reality warp and destroy whole cities and even countries. And at most, he could actually very easily argue that the digital world is a whole universe, or at least a place with moons and a sun and even stars in some shots. And Caine being able to create something that has a star in it would also, for example, make him a star buster, because he can create those worlds and can destroy those worlds. And if it has multiple stars, you could argue it's the size of a normal universe, or at least bigger than just one solar system.
Night, day, it's all okay. The choice is yours, a cosmic buffet.
If you are a Hazbin Hotel fanboy and want to make it boring, yes, you can say Caine is a VR AI. So Alastor could just turn down the computer or the servers or whatever, and in that case, he does win. There you go. In that scenario, he wins. Obviously, you can leave the video. That's all you needed to hear. He can beat a computer program. Congratulations. In a second scenario, you could easily argue that they're both solar system busters, based on the Stolas and Angels thing for Alastor, and the Digital Circus having a sun, and possibly other stars for Caine. But between the two, I would argue Caine has a more conclusive claim over this level of power, as he's literally considered God in this reality, and he creates different worlds all the time canonically. Whereas Alastor's argument relies on you assuming Stolas actually destroyed this solar system when it's not necessarily confirmed, and that those primordial angels created stars and planets even though it's only implied. And even then, you would need to say Alastor is as strong as them, which is definitely not the case. So I think it's more consistent to say that Caine's arguments for being stronger are a little more consistent and make a lot more sense.
Have to disagree with you there. Radio's not dead, but it is ending this broadcast.
Bye, bitch!
The most interesting part is how would they interact, because demons in Hazbin Hotel can only be killed by holy weapons. So even if you have like the strongest demon ever trying to kill an imp, it probably wouldn't work. So even if they are equal, or Caine is way stronger, he could really only hurt him. But could he actually kill him? That's Alastor's strongest claim to not losing, in my opinion. Especially since we don't even know if Caine can kill real people like he does with the NPCs. It's likely, but he does seem to make a distinction between them, and there seems to be a difference between them. However, here's where the final argument comes into play in favor of Caine, because he doesn't have to kill him, really. He is essentially a reality warper within his world. He can do anything, create, destroy, manipulate everything, so killing isn't the only option. What if he just throws him in a random other dimension he created and leaves him there to wander for all of eternity? Or, I give you a better one, turns him into confetti and just leaves him on the floor. He doesn't have to kill him, just change his state of being or rearrange his molecules. That he's as good as dead, or even worse than dead. So, to recap, at the least, Alastor can slash mountains, but Caine can create and reality warp whole lands that include mountains. And if we are to look at them with most charity, Alastor is potentially a solar system buster, But Caine is that plus a reality warper, and arguably creates whole universes. Even Alastor's best asset, that being the fact that he can't be game-ended without holy weapons, doesn't mean much when he can just be transmuted or transformed into confetti, a statue, a chair, or whatever without being necessarily killed, just rendered useless, as well as just being thrown in another dimension. So if you look at the lower interpretations of their characters and the higher interpretation of the characters, no matter what, it seems like Caine has the ability and even strength advantage.
My! It appears a new human has entered this realm!
Pleasure to be meeting you. Quite a pleasure. I'm about to end your